Hello everyone, I would like to quickly show you a video that I came across that I believe is pretty much a perfect encapsulation of the current state of affairs here in this country of America.
Congress taking quick action, approving a $13 billion deal to help Ukraine.
School districts across our area tell us they're seeing significant increases in children that are homeless.
I'm announcing another $800 million to further augment Ukraine.
A revealing look at homelessness among the middle class.
U.S. have announced new military assistance for Ukraine. They've promised an extra $713 million.
We experienced as a county a 22% increase in homelessness.
The Senate overwhelmingly passing a new $40 billion Ukraine aid bill.
We are learning the homeless problem we are seeing in Knoxville is growing at an alarming rate.
The U.S. is sending an additional $700 million in military aid.
We're in dire straits. We don't know where we're going to go. We have no savings.
The U.S. is sending an additional $1 billion in weapons and aid to Ukraine.
The CEO of the Coalition for the Homeless of Central Florida tells me this is a scary trend.
The Pentagon announcing today it's sending a new $450 million military package to Ukraine.
Tonight we are going in depth on the issue of homelessness, of course, a growing problem here in Colorado.
The U.S. sending an additional $400 million in military aid.
Rising housing costs and inflation are leading to more people living on the street.
The United States is sending another $1 billion in military aid.
69,000. That's how many people are homeless across L.A. County.
A new aid package is going to be announced tomorrow, including an additional $3 billion to train and equip Ukrainian forces.
Sacramento's homeless population had a jump of 67%.
The White House now asking Congress for more than $13 billion in additional military aid.
More than 2,500 students within the district don't have a place to call home.
Yeah, Katie, and that's 1,000 more from last year.
Well, the Biden administration preparing to send another $600 million military package to Ukraine.
There's a stark warning from city officials tonight as they're seeing a record number of families out on the streets.
$275 million to meet Ukraine's critical security and defense needs.
One LA County city is close now to declaring a state of emergency over homelessness.
The White House is also asking for $37.7 billion to fund the war in Ukraine.
Housing prices are up 17% from the previous year, and you can see the fallout of that just right behind me here.
Okay, so I came across that video on Twitter. The account that I came across it from was at Turncoat Don. I'm not sure if they're the manufacturer or creator of that video. They most likely are, but if they indeed are, or whoever is, shout out to them for making that video. It's extremely well done. And I mean, the video pretty much said everything in and of itself, and hopefully you were able to decipher the message that was being given in that video with those collage of clips there. And I can come at this from many different angles, but the angle that I'll choose is the following, because to me it's the most apparent and most important and really the most immediate thing that we're dealing with. You know, many people like to point towards the situation in Afghanistan as it pertains to the fall of the Soviet Union. You know, they like to use words such as overextending, and they tried to do too much, and they shouldn't have engaged in, an arms race with the United States, who they had no chance of competing against in that regard. Well, history is a beautiful thing, and it can show us and tell us a lot, and we can learn from it if we indeed choose to do so. And throughout history, the same mistakes have been repeated over and over and over again. And it's a similar situation that we see today. In that video that you just watched, you just saw millions upon billions of dollars going to a faraway place that most Americans can't tell you 3 relevant things about. They can't even point it out to you on a map if you ask them to. This place is called Ukraine, and our government has made the decision, no democracy involved here because we weren't consulted, to give billions of dollars in war aid. They call it aid. This very critical and vital aid that they're giving to Ukraine to fight in this proxy war against the Russian regime. Of course, for reasons that we've discussed many times on this channel, you can seek out videos in which I discuss it. But they've decided to do this while we still face all the problems that we have been facing and will continue to face in the foreseeable future domestically here in this country. As you saw in that video, they just gave out random statistics of homelessness shooting up, the dangers it proposes, the rising cost of housing. I mean, you can't even get a house in today's society unless you're making exorbitant amounts of money, which is absolutely insane. The cost of rent, the cost of healthcare, the lack thereof of that particular need, how families are struggling across the country, all these different statistics that point towards a falling, a struggling empire. And it's the same thing that we saw that people often point to, as I alluded to earlier, previously, to the fall of the Soviet Union. And I'm sure other regimes in the past we can liken this situation to. But it's this trying to do too much and not focusing on the masses here at home. If we look back, we all remember most recently the embarrassment in Afghanistan, a war that the United States engaged in and they lost. The Taliban is stronger than they were before the United States entered in Afghanistan. And not only that, but the United States' policy has been to freeze the assets and the money of Afghanistan and essentially starve their population because they don't like the policy of the people that run that particular place. The same thing can be said about Iraq. They lost in Iraq. Okay, what they tried to accomplish in Iraq, or at least what they said they wanted to accomplish, didn't come into fruition. Another loss. The same thing can be said about Vietnam. And now what's happening in Ukraine, as they tell us that Ukraine must defeat the Russian military, nothing of the sort has happened, is going to happen, and definitely won't happen. Another loss incurred by the American empire. And these things keep piling up. And as we sit here as citizens and we watch all this back home and we see our government continue along with these ridiculous policies as the same struggles deepen and the austerity deepens and the problems get worse, we see an empire that is flailing about, trying its hardest to hold on to whatever former glory, authority, and power it once had, but its grip is slipping ever so slightly as days go by. And then you peer across the water and you look at the rising power that is the People's Republic of China indeed, and you see that their policy is very different from the policy of the United States. Their policy has been to not put austerity on the masses, but to help the masses, to raise their wages, to give them places to live, to do central planning, to try different economic models besides the one that has been so destructive over these past centuries. That has incurred growth, but we see the inequality, we see the degradation, we see the profiteering that goes on within such a system. But they've decided to do something different. They've decided to go a different way, and we see the results that incurs. But I wanted to just have a brief discussion about this video that I came across. It's ever so prescient in today's society, and I believe it says a lot about the direction in which this country is going.